Call the meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order on Tuesday, March 18th at 5 p.m. on the dot. I would ask Callie to note roll call. The one announcement, and I'll say this later just so everyone gets it as well. Our next meeting is April 3rd because of the election on April 1st, so it's a Thursday. Just so you get that in your calendars. There are no minutes, so we will move to items for discussion. And we will go to 4.1, discussion regarding potential use of funds for an affordable housing extension of tax incremental district number 3. Mr. Alon is going to lead this discussion.
So you should have had a memo and then a draft of the program that we've been discussing for the last several months included in packet materials. In Village Board, we'll be looking at the potential resolution to take the affordable housing extension for tax increment district number 3. I did get some feedback from Jim via email on some of this, who wasn't sure if he'd make it. So it looks like he made it. Good. I'm hoping your hunting trip was successful. Yeah. But I think for our purposes here tonight, I'll just kind of roll through this and open up to any questions and kind of talk through it at a high level. Again, we're not taking action on this program itself tonight. This is at Cal. The goal would be to get this to Al for legal review and then adopt it at a future meeting. So I'm hoping this encapsulates most of the discussion, if not all of the discussion that we've had to this point. So first and foremost, I've learned through certain activities here at the village that I'm not the best of thinking of names for programs. So I will invite lots of comment on the name Home Reach to Forest as a program name.
When I read it, I loved it.
Okay, well, there you go.
I liked it too.
Things are looking up. Right? So that's good. So there's some introduction here. Obviously, we're still maintaining the two distinct funds. One is the Affordable Housing Development Fund, which is to look at incentivizing for larger scale workforce housing development, and then the 4 programs that we've kind of been hashing out. The details of the larger scale development fund would be for residential developments that, again, priority for owner occupied, which I heard from you all. Residential developments that would be affordable to those earning 80% AMI or less, which is HUD's definition of low income is 80%, 50% AMI, they consider very low income. For example purposes, we will have an exhibit to this. I can't remember if I included it in the packet that has a chart of area median income from 2024 that could be updated, but basically it's just intended to provide a reference. Ineligible developments, we kind of spelled out in a little bit more detail here. The submission process, it's similar to how the Village Board reviews TIF requests. So applicants would submit a letter of intent to village staff, which would include a narrative, conceptual site plans, a draft pro forma, so that we could verify, that there is a need for the funds. Some description and demonstration of what the affordable housing units for the development would be, and then a development schedule, and then the amount of the request itself. Staff would then work to look through the LOI for completeness, at which point we would obviously bring it to you all once that is determined to be completed. There would likely be a concept presentation by the applicant as well to give you a sense excuse me, of the developer as well as the development taking place. And then from there, we would essentially enter into, assuming it's a development that you all like and meets the criteria of this program, an agreement would be executed. So I'll pause there and ask for any questions on that first part.
Any questions?
Excuse me.
I will say, Alex, that your material was very clear and I appreciated that.
Good, I'm glad. If you don't mind, I'm gonna grab my water.
Good idea.
Sorry about that. Looking at the second half of this program, again, this was subdivided into 4 categories: the Aging in Place and Accessibility Improvements Program, Emergency Health and Safety, Hazard Mitigation, Down Payment Assistance and Home Improvement, and then the Local Public Service Down Payment Assistance Program. Most of this remains pretty much the same. We did kind of dug into some of the details from when we talked last in terms of income restrictions. So again, this would be a 0% interest loan up to $20,000, repaid over 10 years or upon sale, with a grant component for those 60% AMI or less. We did include, or I did include a provision in here. It's probably at the end of the agreement. We talked about making sure that in instances of default, there could potentially be recourse with accelerated interest. I think Al had kind of talked about that. That's included in this as well. Applicant has to contribute 20% of total public project cost for those improvements. There'd be a fee, a verification of income. And this is, some of these things are fairly similar to how the CDA reviews some applications as they come in for our revolving loan program. This is just tailored a little bit differently towards residential rather than a commercial. The CDA project or program is geared towards commercial. Obviously, we'd want to understand what the project is. Projects have to be completed within a year of funding approval unless otherwise set forth by this board. We'd want a requirement from homeowners insurance, and then obviously a W-9 so that we can issue payments. Listing the eligible projects. This is an example, a list that's an example, certainly not all inclusive, but I think it gives a good idea of what aging and accessibility projects are. Again, if awarded funding, there would have to be a funding agreement. We talked about having these be template agreements that Al would essentially draft up ahead of time. You all would review it and approve the templates so that we could carry these forth and have a staff basically execute those based on what you've already approved. If there's any deviation from those, we'd have to come to the board for a different agreement, I guess. If the property is sold within 3 years or rented to another party within 3 years, I have the language in here that says we may require repayment of any funds as applicable. I know, Jim, one of your comments was we should change that to we shall require repayment of any funds as applicable, with the provision that they could request the village board for an exception if there's a hardship, which certainly is a way we could do that. I wrote it this way to allow for some flexibility. There's provisions in here for how many times they can request disbursement, and then verification of completeness by staff after the work is done. Obviously, they have to comply with all the regulations. For loan repayments, we would defer, I'm proposing that we would defer payments through the completion of the project. And then they would also have the ability to request up to 60 days for their deference. Certainly, that's something I think would be beneficial, but not needed. And then here's a clause about interest accrued. If there's default, that would start when, that would accrue from the time of funding disbursement. Any questions on category 1 or comments?
Bill, and then Rebecca, and did you have your hand up?
The building or fixing up, is this by a contractor, or are we gonna let?
Licensed contract.
It's not, we're not gonna let the person's brother that's never installed a toilet before redo the bathroom?
Unless he's licensed.
So just, it'll be contractor.
Yep, and I think I'm trying to find the language.
Yeah. Like,
But yes, I have that language in here somewhere.
okay, so we're talking license and.
Here you go. All project work must be performed
Oh,
by a professional contractor defined as one who is licensed, bonded, trained, and engaged in such work for a career.
have we figured out a credit score for people, or is it just, I mean, you don't want to give out loans to somebody with a 489 credit score.
Sure. So the credit score thing, in order to pull credit scores, I think we have to pay to do that. Like we have to pay for the ability to pull credit score. So if you wanted to do that, I guess we could explore how to do that. But we do ask for proof of income predominantly to verify income qualifications, right, for the AMI standpoint. The down payment assistance ones are, I think, a little bit easier for us to evaluate because if they're securing, those are contingent upon them securing financing, which means they're getting evaluated by a bank for feasibility. But you're right, for some of these ones that are just home improvement.
Just the
Probably wanna
reason
have
I'm
something.
kind of concerned is
Sure.
my nephew works at a used car dealership, a big one in Madison. And these people want a Cadillac and they have a 489 credit score and, you know, they get mad when they get turned down and
Yeah.
he sees quite a bit of it.
We could do credit score. Otherwise, similar to what we do with the CDA's revolving loan program, they have what's called a short form analysis, which has, and Rebecca and Jane, you've seen that as well. They have other criteria too for income qualifications. That may be another path to have some other criteria that we evaluated by. That way we don't have to go out and try to pay for I don't even know what you have to get to be able to pull credit. But some sort of income criteria is a good point.
We're going to do Bill Chang, Rebecca, and then Tashidra.
Alex, just quickly here in the home improvement section, you talked about a payback or talking about if they rent to someone else. How do we determine if they've rented to someone else?
So if they purchase the property and they still maintain ownership out of their own personhood, but are renting it out.
Yeah, I just saw the language in the
Yep.
document there, and we don't track rentals, right?
Right.
So
I don't know if that would be potentially with like some of the utility bills could potentially be a way to evaluate that if it's passed on. I guess I have to think about that a little bit more.
Rebecca?
Thank you. Good question, Bill Chang. I hadn't even thought about that one. Good. Two things. One, for this specific program for the home improvements, I don't know that I'm necessarily in favor of pulling credit scores. I think the criteria that like the form that we've got, it's not quite the same as the bigger thing for developments. That's where I'm looking at it. I think if they meet the qualifications of what we're setting out, I think that is a good thing. As far as, there was one thing I did have a question about though, related to, it was earlier in where you were saying, if they sell the property, before they've paid off the loan. I don't know that I don't know that I'm necessarily in favor of doing this, but I want to ask the question, is this something we want to consider doing a lien until, because there's costs involved with that too. Is that something we want to consider doing so that should they up and sell it without our knowledge, it comes up so that that's part of the closing?
Yeah, I think for these, we were looking to do that I don't know if it was for the home improvement ones, to have it be second position.
Yeah. It's not like we're going to come after them. It's, it's not that. It's just in case, because people, when they're selling their homes, they're not thinking about some things. They're thinking about selling their home, getting into a new place. They've got a lot on their minds, and I'm not thinking nefarious. I'm just thinking I want to make sure that we're protected as much as we can be without being over unreasonable.
Yeah.
So
it's
a thought that those were my things.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Tashidra?
Two things. First, with the credit score, I don't know that I'm necessarily on board with that just because there's so much that goes into credit scores and which lender are you going to look at and are they incredibly reliable? And these individuals are already in a situation where their income is already low. So I'm thinking their credit score isn't going to be the best already. And so are we adding another layer or another hoop that they need to jump through? And then that adds another layer of costs on the village side. And how do we recover that cost without it having a negative impact? So I think if they already have to fill out an application and meet qualifications, I think that's enough. And if you have another form that they have to fill out, which I'm not a fan of a ton of forms, then fine. But I think when you start to talk about credit scores and all these other things, I think that's just adding another slippery slope. And in terms of renting to others, is there some language in there that we can put that states that on the front end, if you do rent and don't disclose, this nullifies the application and you immediately have to pay back? That way, you're not running around trying to keep tabs, because I think one loan is one thing, but when you have 4 and 5, 20, 30, 40, 100 loans out there, that just adds another layer of workload to individuals that are already at capacity with their workload. So I'm just thinking about the more tasks we add, the more things you guys are going to be responsible for doing. So is there verbiage we can put in the contract on the front end? If you do this, then these are the consequences. That way you've already disclosed the cause and effect, so you don't have to run around, are you renting, are you not renting type thing.
Yeah. Definitely any agreement that we execute with them would have those things in there. And this program, once it's finalized, the program document will be, a public document too. And we could probably even put together a more digestible form that's not however many pages long this is, so that it's all front and center. Ultimately, if people opt to be, in violation of some of these things, the enforcement side, as Bill's talking about, it is probably going to be a challenge for us to figure out. So not dissimilar to other agreements and things like that. Sometimes it comes down to you put it in there, and if you're somehow made aware of it, then you have recourse. But I don't know how active we're going to be, I guess, in tracking some of that stuff, because it would get complicated. Any,
Dan,
yep.
Um,
and then Bill.
First, Alex, I wanted to say that I like everything that you put together. It looks like you've done a lot of hard work. And I find that it's really pretty easy to read, and you've got a lot of good information here. I first wanted to go back to what Jim said about putting the verbiage in there as shall pay back. I would go along with that. I would like to see that. And then going back to the credit score discussion, I'm not completely against credit scores. I think that what's out there, and maybe this is because I'm an insurance agent, so I live in it every day. I think the information that's out there is reliable, and I don't know that it's that expensive to pull those reports. Maybe you could look into that and let us know, because obviously if it's real expensive, then that wouldn't be the case. We might not want to do it. If we don't do credit scores, I'm wondering if maybe we could put some verbiage in there that if someone has had bankruptcies or they have open judgments against them, that they may not qualify for this. So maybe something along those lines. That's pretty much all I have to input. Thanks.
Can we go to the section where we were talking about may and shall,
Sure.
just so I can see what that looks like again?
Al, do you have to qualify in order to even be able to pull credit reports? Is there certain organizations? Oh. Okay. May and shall. If the property, okay. Sorry, I'm orienting myself here. Here it is. I'll zoom in a second.
So you want to add shall to the village, shall require repayment of any funds as applicable.
Mm-hmm. And then Jim, well, you can speak first.
Yeah,
Yep.
I guess if I could speak, I thought shall would be, say, a stronger word, because to me, may doesn't really mean that we're doing anything. But then I thought it was be, in my view, we should have a recourse that if they want to go to Alex or the board or a committee or something, that say like, if it's been 2.5 years and God forbid somebody dies, it's not like I'm gonna say, okay, you got it back. But I don't want them to think that, okay, it's just me, I'll move on. They have to actually submit something to us or writing or show up to a board, just make it a little bit more difficult.
Well, and I'll just say too that it's possible, I guess I invite your opinion, that that 3 years is the wrong number, because the intention here was to avoid somebody utilizing our program to then improve a house and flip it, right? So if 3 years needs to be scaled down to like 18 months or something like that, we could look at that instead. Or if you think 3 years is appropriate, we can.
That was my next point. I'm just wondering if we might want to move it down to like 2 years. I mean, someone could legitimately live in a property for 3 years, but if they sell the property, they should repay it anyway.
Okay.
So, anytime within that 3 years, so maybe we make clear that, it's not just at 3 years, it's anytime up to 3 years.
Okay.
So that was one of my questions, and I am fine with shall there.
Okay.
And then I think as part of the program discussion with applicants, I'm wondering if, as we explore credit rating, whether we pull them or we contribute to them, this could be a way for people to start building a credit rating, which could be very, very important and very helpful.
That's a good point. Okay, I'll connect with some of our lending partners to see what some other, again, I mentioned the short form analysis, what other income criteria might be reasonable.
Bill Chang?
So getting back to this rental thing and owner occupied, I think that's the language that's in there. Comes down to a policy decision of if we want it to be addressed specifically to owner occupied or the unit of house, unit of dwellings within a structure. Because I know that we have properties in the village that may be single family, 2-family, or 3-family that need improvements too. And, not all of it is owner occupied. So I guess that's the bigger question. I don't know if there's a specific section we are able to make loans, but I know that statewide, those type of facilities or that type of housing is also a area where they don't get a lot of funding.
So you're saying if someone owned a 4-plex or a 3-plex?
Yeah, it would be a 3-plex or lower, because if it's a 4, then it's a multi-residential. But sometimes those are the owners that may have lived there and moved out and serves as a secondary income. But those are also likely the ones that don't have enough income to be updating it. And sometimes, like our older homes in the downtown area, those are oftentimes, if they're being rented, those 2 units to 3 units buildings.
Yeah, I'll say that everything in this second bucket of programs, all 4 categories, are currently written specifically towards single-family owner occupied. So if that was something that you'd want to consider, then this would definitely need to be revised.
Well, Rebecca, and before you speak, let me ask, did they get down? Will you let us know? They're down. Okay, thank you.
Sorry. I guess I didn't realize that these smaller units, the 3-plex, 2-plex, or duplex, didn't really have access to funding as much. And I would think that we, as part of redevelopment and stuff like that, that we would want to encourage as much for them to maintain their properties, just like any other home in town. I'm open to some suggestions in this area on how we could fit that into this section. I think what you were saying, the multiplex, multi-unit or whatever you said, fourplex and up, those fit into a different category. I'm assuming they have access to different funding that the threeplexes and duplexes don't. Is that correct or am I incorrect?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's access to different types of funding, but it's often easier to get funding and financing with a higher rate of return
Okay.
or a higher collateral per se. Again,
Do we find, I don't know if you have this information or not, but are a lot of the threeplexes in town that we do have, are they ones that have an owner that's living in one of those units and renting out I know that happens a lot in some places.
I would venture to guess that that's
Probably not the case.
in the
Okay.
vast majority. Certainly it can happen, but I would say most cases that's not the case.
And then I would assume, you know what they say about assuming, that duplexes, we would want to potentially consider those too. I can think of some duplexes even on my own street that could use a little TLC. So I don't know. I hadn't even thought about that in this discussion, but I think that's a important avenue to at least discuss.
It would be easy to incorporate into this program itself. It just would be a decision that, again, like Bill said, that's more of a policy level decision.
I'm open to that.
Yeah, the policy, I think the policy level decision that needs to be made or directed is the intent of this program aimed at owner occupancy? Or is it aimed at housing stock in general? So that's a board decision.
And that's a big question. I mean, what's the total amount of money we're dealing with?
Well, this theoretically and hopefully would be an ongoing program that you all could capitalize as you see fit from whatever funding sources come available in the future, whether that's future TID closures or others. But initially, this portion of this program, if it's capitalized 50-50, right? I think we said 50-50. It's approximately 300,000 for these four categories.
I mean, if you're redoing a threeplex, it can be a big amount of money. And so I would be supportive of focusing on all housing stock. I'm not sure we can afford to do some of that. So does that mean then we cap the amount someone can get? And then is it just pouring bad money into or good money into a bad situation? I mean, I'd want to think about that a little bit. I saw your hand, Bill. Go ahead.
Yeah, the definition of multifamily, you said is 4?
I didn't define it.
Or it was, because we were talking about threeplex and a 4?
Yeah, within the zoning code, it's for.
Oh, okay, because we're looking at ordinance 011 tonight. Under multifamily developments, last sentence of paragraph, the specification of multifamily development means a building having more than 2 dwelling units. That's in the email that you sent out to us. Does that apply in this or, you know?
That ordinance deals with impact fees and it's the definition only for the impact fee ordinance.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right.
Just one last comment. I think maybe that this part of the discussion might be for a future expansion of the program if we get to a point where we feel that we can afford to do something like that. But I think maybe we should just focus on what we've been focusing. That's my personal opinion. But I think it would be worth pursuing potentially in the future.
Okay.
I think I would tend to agree with that. Jim?
I feel like I'm a bit torn if we want to say geared towards home ownership or people that own the home, because I can, really a lot of my concern, I'll say, as far as zoning goes, is that some of the areas need to be lifted up. And I think you're right, some of those areas that are going downhill maintenance wise are probably half rentals right now. I think we have the caps built in already. I mean, we got whatever, was it 10 and 20 is one that's on the screen, but maybe we say like only, because what I don't want to have happen is somebody that's, say, very good at writing grant applications, now all of a sudden gets 5 of them at 10,000. We should say, maybe cap the number of, say, the property owners or something. And I think that maybe even brings up a bigger question, because if you have so many LLCs, are you eventually all giving it to the same person? So I don't know. I think it's bringing up more questions. So good luck, Alex.
Thanks. I will say that at the very least, the last category, which is category 4, the public service employment one, I would say that that probably makes sense to have it restricted to owner occupied, because the intent there was folks who are working here and those things should also be able to live here. So I'll throw that out. Wherever we decide to go with the rest of it is, again, your guys' call. But I guess what I'm hearing is maybe, and correct me if there's a difference of opinion, start here and see how the program kind of takes hold in the community. And then if we need to amend or adjust and add additional, we could do that.
I think that makes good sense. Where are people, am I seeing thumbs?
Ish. Yeah, reasonably.
Yep.
Sort of, okay. Should we continue with some of these? I know we're kind of halfway through and I think there's deer antlers over here, so. Category 2 is the Emergency Health and Safety Hazard Mitigation Program. Similar structures, just the eligibility requirements are different in terms of what eligible projects are. This would be emergent life and health threatening circumstances. Oddly enough, literally as I was working on the draft of this program, I didn't write anything down about this, but I had a call from a case manager who was working with a senior in the community who had a sewer backup, and I think maybe they even talked with you, Greg. And she had like $7,800 worth of damage that this individual had to pay for. Fixed income, lower income, could not do it. They were asking about programs. I said, if we had talked to you in a year, if this happened in a year, we would have been able to provide. So it was uncanny timing, but those are the types of things that I think this program would be amazing for. So most of this is the same, just the projects are a little different. One thing that I didn't ask about, and we hadn't talked about before, is this inclusion of a $50 application fee. The goal there was just to make sure we're getting serious inquiries and not people throwing in, 100 applications, like said Jim. But if there's opposition to that $50 application fee, please let me know. Other than that, category 2 is pretty similar to the first one. Any questions or comments on this one? Yep.
Yeah, about that sewer pipe that came up, we've got like 10 to 12 lead pipe laterals in the village. Would the funds be available for that? Because that can run, I don't know, I had mine done for $500 35 years ago, but people have $5,000, $8,000. Could these funds be used for that?
For lead pipe replacement?
Yeah.
I guess that would probably
It's an
mean that I would have to further define what eligible projects are and be really concrete about it. I honestly don't know. These guys could probably answer a little bit better whether that would be considered or could be considered an emergent problem.
I can say, the DNR and EPA,
They do.
want these gone, and it will be mandated by 2036 that all municipalities will have them replaced, so
So
Do we have,
somewhere in that time frame.
So it is like a sewer, you're fixing your sewer, your pipes. It's an infrastructure improvement. So I would think you'd be able to use that.
I can add it to the list. Mhm.
My question is, how many of those do we think are out there that people could apply? And we'd have to make sure they were people who truly couldn't afford it. And then do we get someone saying, well, why did the village give me money to do mine? And
Well, it'd still have to meet the income criteria of this program. And then I don't think I caught the first part, but are you talking about the private side of replacement and not necessarily public?
I'm just saying, yeah, the private side and the cost. And one resident gets a grant because they're low income, another one doesn't, but
Sure.
says, well, they got money from the village to do this, why can't I? And, you know, there's a tension that could develop there.
Sure.
So we're looking into how we are gonna handle this, right? So we have like roughly 12 currently identified. We think maybe there'll be a handful more we'll come across. We don't think there's a lot. But nonetheless, there are grants available from the DNR. They're super cumbersome, right? So for us to do that for a handful of grants, or is it just better for us as a community to handle it? So Greg and I are still trying to analyze what's the best way to handle it, and we'll come back with a recommendation for the board to make a call at that point. If it's solely on us to do, or if it's an individual homeowner basis. And then I guess if you decide that's each individual homeowner's responsibility for what happens from the shut off to the home, right? Then you could decide, does it want to fit into one of these?
So you could see that this category allows for a lot of gray area. So I think one approach that we could take is have as an exhibit to all these programs a pretty comprehensive list of all the items that we would think would qualify. And then if there's something that's outside of that, that the applicant says, hey, you missed this is really truly a life-threatening or health and safety issue, maybe there would be a petition process, but Al can probably say whether or not that's a good idea or not.
Bill, did you have? Right, Rebecca.
Yeah, I think I can see where it sounds like there's not a huge number of homes that might be affected by this. But they still have to qualify for the program itself. So, and we only have so many funds. So I mean, in a way, it's kind of a first come, first serve, so long as you qualify. So when it comes to the kind of what Jane was referring to, well, they got it, why didn't I? They could say that about anything. So I don't think that that's necessarily something we need to even worry about, really. I mean, if somebody's going to be like that, I'm sorry. But I think that I personally think that with the lead pipe issue and the fact that they are going to be required to be replaced, and some of these homeowners are probably in a situation like this one person with the sewer backup. I think it would be a good idea to at least include that as one of the projects that could be used for.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. That's helpful. Moving on to category 3 is the down payment assistance and home improvement program. The down payment grant is spelled out at $10,000. And for this program, what I heard from this group previously was the goal here was, again, talking about housing stock improvement, right? Home ownership, but home ownership for certain and improvements to certain homes. So that down payment grant would also be required upon the applicant accepting a home improvement loan, which is the second piece here. So the home improvement loans could be up to $30,000, again, 0% interest in a similar way. I'm losing my whole stuff here. So again, hearing the desire to improve housing stock, the loan itself, the home improvement loan could be applied for by people who reside in properties currently and are not looking to purchase. So the intention of this is, yes, getting new people into the community to purchase homes, but more so geared towards improving certain qualities of homes. Again, we put the owner occupant requirement here upon purchase. So here is where we kind of addressed housing stock. I know, Jim, you had kind of mentioned at previous discussions, if there are certain areas of the community that could be targeted, certain homes that are older, the way that I chose to address that would be based on their assessed value. So having their most recent assessed value no more than 120% of the median assessed value in the village. And that would sort of cap the quality of homes that these programs would be eligible for. And we'd put an exhibit as well to show what that median home value is. Again, the income constraints of 80% AMI. For project costs, they have to stick 20% into the project themselves. And this gets to sort of the discussion that we were having in terms of how do we determine whether or not an applicant's going to be able to make repayments. In order for us to do this, they have to be able to secure financing commitment from a financial institution to purchase the property before we execute an agreement. So that gives us a degree of assurance that we can reasonably expect to be repaid as well. Similar requirements on supplemental materials to be submitted, particularly as it pertains to the projects, home improvement projects. So this was not specific to aging and accessibility stuff, but it has a wider range. Again, this is a list to provide examples, not all exhaustive. Ineligible projects, we also set forth what that looks like. Appliances, equipment, those types of things, anything that's going to destroy a structure only without replacing it, landscaping, site work, things like that. Included a provision here, and this was modeled off of another program that I'd actually seen. Interior projects to garages, things that's not improving the curb appeal, so to speak, or the interior living space, dog houses, those types of things as well would be ineligible. Again, they'd be required to enter into a funding agreement. Again, you see that 3-year requirement or rental, which we've had some discussion on. Most of this is pretty comparable. Yeah. Any questions on this category? I will say that Jim had provided the comment, and you'll see this in the comparison to the next program. The down payment grant for category number 3 was $10,000 versus the grants for the first 3 home improvement programs were $7,500. And then the down payment grant for the last program is $20,000. He was saying maybe there would be some consistency there. Which we could certainly look at. The reason that it was 10 versus 7.5 for the other programs is just it was geared towards down payment and not necessarily home improvements. That was the thought with that.
You can't do much with a $7,500 down payment nowadays.
Any questions on this piece?
Just one. I guess it's going back to the same basic thing I was talking about before. Because obviously some people do, maybe they're in an existing home, they want to get it improved. And then they get it improved, their home value goes up some, and then they decide to sell. I think it would be beneficial to do that same lien so that if it is sold before it is paid off, that we hopefully get, made whole during the closing. That's my only comment. Otherwise, I liked this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, one.
Also, in there, it says may after 1 year of purchasing the property, the village may require repayment of any funds. That's under the listing of the people eligible.
That's for the fourth category you're talking now?
Yes, right, just down a little more. There you go. May require repayment I'd really like to see shall.
Okay. So that's for the next category, but we can definitely visit that if questions are done for category 3.
Okay. All right.
So the last category is the local public service down payment assistance. The down payment grant was 20,000 or 50% of the required down payment, whichever is, I'm assuming that says less. Whichever is less, yes. I did propose the eligible organizations. Certainly, if I'm missing anything, please let me know. But I do think this is likely a list. Previously, we had PD on here. Technically, they are Village of DeForest, so I would include them under that. And again, the intention here was people who are in public service employment within the village and living in the village, or should be have the opportunity to live in the village. So that's why these organizations are chosen, as opposed to maybe a public state organization or something of that nature. As Trustee Landgraf had pointed out, the application, so the way that this is written, if the applicant initiates termination of employment within a year of purchasing the property, and it sounds like the desire is to have this say shall, which we can certainly write in there, require repayment of any funds. I specifically included the word initiate. Certainly you can have a discussion on that if you want to just make it termination of employment, even if that's by any of those organizations. But that was the proposal. Certainly it wouldn't be at any point fault, I guess. And then they'd also be eligible to apply for the home improvement loan in category 3 as part of this as well. And then Jim, I know, had made a comment about whether the 20,000 and the 10,000, whether to reconcile those and put them down to 10, if 10 was a better number than 20 for one individual. So open that up for questions. And then you had one more comment on there, which I think I'm going to ask for you to explain that because I wasn't really clear on that too.
Okay, so do you want to take that comment on, Jim, and then we'll
Sure.
follow up?
So in this funding 4, I was like comparing it, say, to I think it was the category 3, that there's, what is it, you need to be 60 or 80% of the AMI.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that was in category 4.
Sorry, it probably is. It's just not very clear. So all eligibility criteria and requirements are the same as category 3 with the exception of the following.
Okay.
That makes sense. Now I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
And does that also include the median home value then?
Yep.
okay. Other comments or questions on this? I just want to say again, I think 20,000 is a good number. Maybe there's some way someone's eligible for the 20,000 or not, but again, people are required to pay greater down payments now than they ever have been before. So
Would you want both this and the other down payment assistance program to match the numbers? So if $20,000 is the number, they should both, or if 10 is the number, they should both have that.
I don't know that they have to match.
Okay.
10,000 is kind of.
10,000 small.
Al?
I haven't gone through this yet, but I just wanted to throw out one suggestion in category 4. If you're going to require repayment if somebody leaves one of the categories of employment that qualifies them for the program, you should probably consider whether or not, if they leave that employment in order to join another category that qualifies for the same loan, whether that should trigger repayment. So if a school teacher quits teaching to become a firefighter, would they have to repay the amount?
Okay, good point. But if a firefighter leaves to go from here to another community, then I would think we would get repayment.
Sure.
So, okay, other comments? I think this is a good job. Yes, Jim.
I bring this up for discussion. I don't necessarily know what I think about it, but we have heard where people that provide daycare or daycare, teachers, that they are also struggling. Is that
I think
they're
that's,
not quite, say, a member of DeForest, but I don't know if we want to extend it that far.
Yeah, so this had come up at the last time that we discussed this. And I think what we determined was that theoretically, those individuals and households would also potentially qualify under category number 3. But, you know, if you wanted to, I think that would be a little bit more challenging and would expand this, but that would be my answer.
I would say thank you for reminding me. I think that's a good way to look at it because I think that, again, we had had a whole lot of gray area because is it the center that has 100 kids or the center that has 5?
Sure. Mhm.
all right. And then we've got to move on.
Yeah, the schools, can't we get some, not cooperation, but some joint efforts? Because the schools have a lot more money than we do. And, you know, they have a bigger need. Is there any, can they kick in anything?
I might disagree with that.
I can ask if they want to contribute
Yeah.
or if I can ask.
Okay, thanks.
I think it would be a good thing to ask.
All right.
So the next time that you all see this, Al will have reviewed it and should be in a pretty close to finalized state. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let's move on. I would ask for an update regarding urban wildlife management plan. Mr. Blau, there he is.
How are everybody? See if I can bring this up. So we had a memo in the packet, sharing with you. Greg's got some show and tell items if you wanted to see. So we had our first call in quite a while. We had harvested 65 total deer over 7 shoots, 7 days of hunts. One of those days we got skunked, didn't get any. No skunks either. So it was really 6 days. Here's the breakdown that we had. Greg did a good job researching this. With 35 adult female deer, 5 adult male, 14 female fawns, 10 male fawns, 1 adult female deer tested positive for CWD, which is good that was only 1 of those. The adult deer were between 2 to 11 years old. The female deer, which is pretty old for does to get around. And then the adult male deer were between 2 to 3 years old. Only 3 had antlers. And so there was some concern in the community that we were taking big bucks and whatnot. So you can see we didn't, of the 2 other ones, they had already shed their antlers. So it's hard to say what they had. But on our trail cameras, we saw the same deer, it seemed like, on a regular basis there showing up. So, and one other item I can pull up and share with quick. For historical data, I didn't put it in the agenda. This is a touchy mouse. One more. So here you'll see maybe. So previous years, this was presented back in February 23rd of 2010, right? But here's the number of deer that we had culled in 2006. Rough population estimate was 150 plus. We had 37 deers. Year 2007, 130 plus. We harvested 45. So our largest one ever was 46 prior. So I'd heard some other folks thinking we had maybe done a little bit bigger or better services back then. hunted harder. I don't know that we could have hunted much harder than we did to get that. So we did fly a drone back in February. We did see a decline in the number of deer in that same 1.65 square mile area. It was down to 117 we counted. And the big herd that was in the knolls was really the most impacted area that we had seen a reduction of the herd. So we do need to keep on top of this, right? There's going to be a plethora of new deer born here very soon, and they'll continue to migrate in as well to a safe harbor kind of a situation that we have. So we'll continue to monitor that and look again to work with the USDA next year on working forward with it. And so, questions?
Rebecca? Just a real quick one. As far as the deer carcasses themselves, what happened with the ones other than the one that was, that tested positive? Were they?
They're all given out to residents. So they fed 64 residents in the village. We had roughly 74 or 5 folks that from the village who had registered for one. And then we had prioritized next non-employees and non-residents who are people we do business with. So some people here didn't get one. They're shaking their head over there, unfortunately. So we'll have to do better next time. But they all went to residents with the exception, and the one that had CWD, we had already given it to a resident. We called and notified them of that, and we gave them another deer.
Okay.
Replacement deer, so.
Thank you.
All right. Good work, guys. I saw a group of 10 walking down Meadow Lane in the morning about 3 days ago. So they are prolific. So.
We were near your house the other day talking to a resident about another issue there, and he said, I got deer trail, and you could see the trail just through his backyard. There's plenty of them. So that gets a little more tight, right? The tightest we hunted was over by Mayapple. That's where we unfortunately couldn't locate a deer, and they found it a day later. So of the 65, we located 64 of them. The 65th we couldn't find. It showed up in a nearby home's backyard a day and a half later. The police were called, they had to dispatch the deer, and then that homeowner claimed that deer through DNR regulations. So it's unfortunate, right? The sharpshooters did a great job, but that many deer, you're bound to have one that maybe gets away, so.
Good job, guys. It'll help. Yes, Jim.
I don't want to steal your thunder, Judd, but you said how there's now a new amenity north of Dennis Drive that everybody can enjoy, that you have the tower built or whatever.
Certainly. So part of this, we had 2 elevated, I call viewing platforms for wildlife that we use for the hunters to use. So there's one north of Dennis Drive that is going to be made available. We put the railing up all around so it's safe. It's got a nice staircase up. So if people wanted to get out there, they could certainly climb those ladders to the top, and it's got a really nice view of some of the ponds and the wetland areas out there, and you'll see a wide variety of wildlife available. So
Very nice. All right. All right. Anything else you want to tell us on this?
nope. Any other questions?
Not-
We're good.
We appreciate the update and look forward to this program continuing to be successful. All right, we will move on then. Bill, do you have anything?
I'll reserve the DCCVA update for the village board meeting.
All right. Finance update, Carol? Okay. Police update, we don't have anybody. All right. Public services, Judd, do you have anything else?
I'll just have a few things here. We've got Quercus working on natural areas and stormwater ponds burning for the native plants. They're starting that this week. We've got a bunch of work coming up on CV. The Dane County and Village of Windsor will be working on CV this summer. Actually starting in the next couple of weeks, doing culvert replacements, adding signals at Windsor Road and CV. So it's gonna be kind of a mess on CV this year. especially when we start work on V. So there'll be quite a few detours around, so keep an eye out for that. Today, we worked with Dan County Land and Water Resources. They presented to third graders at the Har Elementary School to talk about stormwater murals. So we've got a stormwater mural at the high school in the sidewalk section that dictates like keep the water clean, and it all flows to the Har River type message. So it was pretty fun watching the kids get excited about that, and they're gonna help design the mural that's gonna go at Yahar Elementary School on the sidewalk, so it'll be seen by a lot of people. We've got Cake Parkway construction starting up in the next couple of weeks as well, so.
Good. Busy guys. All right, community development update, Alex.
We went live with a new Engage the Forest page today, which is a housing resources page. So eventually when this program does get approved, that'll be the landing spot for this. So the residents can go on there and access applications and more information. It does contain some other information and resources, tenant resources, stuff for landlords, property owners, and tenants. So Stacy and Rachel from our community development admin team, they've been working diligently on that and they got it live today. So check it out.
Thank you. All right. Administrative services, Callie?
In-person absentee voting started today. We had 112 voters come in and vote today, which is a fairly high number in comparison to previous spring elections. But other than that, we're just all getting geared up for the election in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Reese, Recreation and Community Enrichment?
We're working on a project with the University Alliance right now for the Dragon Arts Fair. So they're helping us kind of look at marketing and how we can better run events more efficiently and grow them and realize the economic impact for those as well. So they're going to be releasing a community survey to find out, you know, what draws people specifically to the Dragon Arts Fair, if they go to other locations and stuff. So you'll see flyers around and we'll start promoting that. And they'll come back before this body here and do a presentation on their work and project. And then we did have our scheduling meeting with the sanction organizations and asked for them to also talk to the Windsor Board to advocate for their residents there as well. So they felt very informed and we're happy that we are starting the conversation with them and said that they were all going to write letters and start to try to do their, get their voices heard there as well. So that is all.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, there is no closed session. So I would note, unless there's other business to come before this body, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to break for 5 minutes and then start our regular village board meeting. So we will see you. I would ask Callie to note roll call. And I will ask Jim to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Announcements for those in the audience who weren't with us during the beginning of the committee of the whole. I just want to announce that the next village board meeting will be April 3rd rather than April 1st because of election day. So I will encourage you to look on the website. The times will all be the same, the location the same, just a different day. We have a consent agenda. and I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to move to public appearances. And we have a couple. Two go together. All right. The first one I have is John, and if I kill the name, I apologize, Schmidneck. John, are you online? Okay, he's not responding, so we will record his desire and move on to the next speaker.
Jane, if you could ask the people on Zoom if they do want to speak, to raise their hand because they're not allowed to unmute themselves.
Oh, okay. And I don't know if you heard that, but if anybody online does want to speak, please raise your hand. If you raise the hand that is on the program, on the Zoom program itself, we'll know you want to speak and we will unmute you. Thank you. All right, with that, we will move to Emily Wade. And if you can give your name and address for the record, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Emily Wade and I live at 4400 Single Way in DeForest. DeForest community residents are under attack, not from a rivaling village, but from our own village board and their friends. There are multiple fake accounts on each social media page. Platform. A Facebook page claiming to give the lowdown on DeForest turns out to just be a Rebecca Witherspoon campaign page and anti-Alicia Williams and anti-everybody else that disagrees with Rebecca Witherspoon. Shake your head, but it's true. A fake account on Nextdoor turns out just to be Bill Landgraf campaign and anti-Jane. And Jane, I hope that you've seen that because it's a little insane. A fake group saying that their intent is to protect free speech mutes and blocks anyone who disagrees with them. Bill Landgraf states at the presidential forum that he welcomes people who are trans and immigrants into our community. And then he goes and makes crude comments on public posts that are made by a hate group leader, Jesse Wisco Simcox, another one of Rebecca's friends. He's saying that there isn't enough Viagra in the world in regards to a woman who is trans on her wedding day. Yes, I hope that, yeah, this is public as well. You can look it up. There are comments on a photo saying that a lady has more chins than a Chinese phone book. Again, it's public. He attacks anyone who holds progressive ideals. He attacks anyone who disagrees with them. Rebecca Witherspoon colluded with Brenda Stodmeyer to push her anti-science RFK Jr. agenda. She encourages Brenda to continue to this day to make YouTube videos and posts about me and another community member. We're residents. She loves when Brenda says, I'm spreading misinformation. Brenda makes fun of my degree, calling it piled higher and deeper. That's a PhD, Dr. Wade to Brenda. Furthermore, Brenda made fun of me being upset about being denied a veterans banner by this very community. She said she's going to make a techno song out of my call. I wonder what Brenda was doing while I was in Baghdad, Iraq. Probably pornography photo shoots. And good for her, because that's needed. But disregarding my scientific education is absolutely preposterous when she waits tables and grifts for a living. These board members think she's the best, and they hate me. Rebecca has brought Kim Smith into local groups to do her attacking for her. This person is cancerous for our community, both Kim and Rebecca. Sheila Howe's son told us that if we, told those of us that want to
Excuse me,
improve the
Emily.
community.
Your time has expired.
Yeah, I didn't even get to my veteran part, but I also was denied a veterans banner. And I'd like to see that all of those other people are DeForest residents and not Windsor, because I'm pretty ashamed of that. It's really hurtful. This is my community. I'm here again.
Thank you, Emily. All right, Mr. Coxhead.
Bear with me, I have a cough, so. Madam President, village trustees in the Village of the Forest.
Excuse me, could you please state your name and address just for the record, please?
Sure, Bernard Cox at 809 Liberty Drive. I'm a 30-year resident in the Forest. It's time for a serious and transparent conversation about the direction in which this village is headed. The unchecked and unaccountable rapid growth disguised as progress erodes the character that once defined our community. Continuous borrowing and spending fueled by real estate speculation, convoluted tax mechanisms such as TIF and TID, and long-term consequences that cannot be ignored. These financial strategies are not just about developments, they are fundamentally reshaping our villages and our cultural fabric. The increased emphasis on high-density developments under the labels of workforce and affordable housing serves as a cover, transforming a small town community into a transient hub with little vested interest in the long-term health of the forest. This approach prioritizes external interests over long-term invested residents. It disregards the community voice shaping its future. Furthermore, this board has demonstrated a troubling pattern of placing greater trust in paid consultants and external influencers rather than the wishes of the residents elected to serve. Under the current leadership, this board has become increasingly divided, fostering an environment of distrust and discord. A prime example is the handling of the fluoride issue, regardless of where one stands on the debate. The real concern lies in the erosion of the civil liberties. Instead of allowing residents to choose fluoride as they see fit, the minority of the board wants to relitigate the actions and impose them on the entire community, forcing those who disagree to bear the financial burden of an expensive filtration system. Even after the majority of the board has acted, such governance disregards individual freedoms. It reinforces the growing perception that the board is operating more as a regulatory agent than a representative of the people. A change in leadership and course correction are long overdue. The forest future should be guided by transparency, accountability, and respect for the voice of the residents, non-residents outside special interests. It's time to restore trust in local government and ensure the decisions reflect the true will of the community.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other forms. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? If not, we will close the public appearance section and move on to the public hearing regarding an ordinance establishing public safety impact fees for fire and emergency medical services and capital improvements. Bill, do you want to say a few words or?
If you could open the public hearing and go through that process, and then I'll present for the ordinance section.
Okay, thank you. I will open the public hearing and it is 6:21 p.m. and we will have a brief presentation. Unless you want to do that under the ordinance.
I'm not sure if I can provide a presentation during the public hearing portion, so I can do that
Okay. we'll do that
afterwards. Yeah.
Under the ordinance. Okay. Is there anyone wishing to appear on the public hearing section on public safety impact fees? If not, I have an urge to say going once, going twice. I will close the public hearing and we will move on. So the public hearing is closed at 6:22 p.m. Thank you. All right, presentations. There are none, old business, none, new business, none. So then we will go to 10.1, which is an ordinance 2025-011, an ordinance amending sections 13.519 and 13.537 and repealing and recreating sections 13.52 of the DeForest Municipal Code relating to impact fees.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's hear from Bill.
Okay, so this, the study for the public safety impact fees, especially for fire and EMS capital improvements, was provided in presentation from Baker Tilly at the most recent village board meeting. Between then and now, we've gone through the study itself and made the grammatical changes. We also did change from a per valuation to a per square footage for the non-residential development costs. So in review, the intention of updating the study and updating the ordinance is because the ordinance had not been updated since 2005. In addition to that, the village is currently negotiating with the Village of Windsor for the future construction of station number 2, projected to be constructed in that 26-27 timeframe. And so what this study and what the fee adjustments allow for the village to do is collect public safety impact fees from new development, residential units at single-family residential units defined as 1 or 2 units in a house or a facility at the rate of $736.87 per unit. For new multiple family developments, so 3 or more units at $660.61 per unit. For group quarters at $364.80 per unit. And then for non-residential, again, your commercial and your industrial at $105.19 per 1,000 square feet of the facility. These fees will be assessed, if approved this evening, will be assessed at the time of building permit. And so once collected, those fees do need to be used within 8 years. I'm happy to answer any questions at this point. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Carol, did you want to add anything? Okay. Any questions? Rebecca?
Yeah, just wanted to make sure. I think we've discussed this before, but just to refresh my memory, the police and the fire had input into these calculations. Is that correct?
So for this study, specifically, the fire and EMS department had input on, it all goes into the study itself, either their comments, the square footage is estimated for fire station number 2, the calls and where they're being serviced. The police department had a separate study.
Sorry,
and we've, at the last meeting, decided not to move forward with the PD impact fees.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Kelly, did you get who made?
Yes, I have Bill made the motion, Rebecca seconded.
Yep. Okay, you had a quizzical look, so I wanted to make sure. All right, we'll be good, Callie. Resolution 2025-026, a resolution extending the duration of tax increment District Number 3, Village of DeForest, for the purpose of supporting affordable housing.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10.3, Resolution 2025-028, a resolution amending the Village of DeForest 2024 operating budget for lapsed funds and transfers. Hard word.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Carol, do you want to give us a brief?
Yep, it's that time of year when we close out the prior year, getting close to having all our numbers finalized. So we have to go through and just look at, it's obviously very difficult to predict 18 months in advance exactly who's going to spend what amount of money. So we, as a whole, just try to make sure we're underneath the approved budget, but sometimes we have to move budget dollars around within areas, departments, just to make sure that we do have the proper amount of budget dollars for every area. So we do a little shifting with the budget dollars just to kind of line things up with where the actual spend happened. And we have an agreement with the library. So every year we take any budgeted, approved budget dollars for the library that does not get spent, and we move it. If it's payroll related, we move it into our future benefits fund. And if it's not payroll related, it goes into the library donation fund and then is maintained for the library to use at a later date. So part of those transfers are just an agreement we have with the library. Part of it is just shuffling the budget dollars around to line up with actual spend. And then you will notice that we did come out favorable at the end of the year. So Callie, if you can pull up the, I think there was an equity analysis page. If we just allow the dollars that we have available to roll into unassigned fund balance, we will end up kind of going outside of our policy range. So we have a policy range that says we want to stay between 15% and 25% of the next year's budgeted expenditures. That's kind of the number we use to calculate this. So we want to stay between 15 and 25%. If we were to allow what we have left over to roll into unassigned fund balance, we will reach closer to 30%. So one of the other things that's happening right now that we just found out is that some money we thought we were going to get in grants for our Highway V project for this year, we are not getting. So that's putting about $2.1 million on our plate that we thought we were going to have grant dollars to cover. So one of our recommendations is that maybe we can move that excess to Fund 400, reduce our borrowing for this year, help cover the Highway V project. And we will at that point then still maintain about a 20.7% unassigned fund balance, which is very similar to where we landed last year. So if that's okay with you, that's the recommendation that you see in this resolution. And that's what we'll proceed with.
It's a one-time amount of money we've captured going to a one-time expenditure. So
Correct.
yep, it sort of balances out. Yep, we have Jim and then we have Jan.
Thank you. I think I'm for the moving to the Highway B. I think that sort of goes with my background too. But I wanted that if you could go, I think it was the page before this, where it had the different things, how it was moving. Yes, what Bill has. It was a spreadsheet that had that. Yep, yeah. So you spoke of it a little bit, but I had it on my note. So what do we mean by an agreement? Is that a verbal thing or is that a written thing? I'm looking at note number 1.
Yeah, my understanding is it's actually in the library minutes somewhere that we and the library board have agreed that we will essentially let the library keep whatever budget dollars they don't spend other than payroll-related and benefit-related savings. That stays with us and goes into the future benefits fund.
Yeah,
But if it's part
I'm
of the
just concerned how that gets, say, shown in the budget. Is that still gonna be shown as like the electrical, it looks like it's moving from? Is that how I'm reading this right? I mean, I want to know when we
Yeah,
get to the budget process that we didn't spend it, so we don't put it in the budget again. Do you know what I'm getting
Yeah.
at?
Yeah, so I just pick an operating account within the library range that had less spending than they had budget, so I can bring the budget down without making it look like that line item went over budget. It's just a random spot that I picked to pull it from. So within the operating accounts, I just picked one that had excess budget available.
Okay, and do you know what they use the donation for?
It just goes into that donation fund, and as far as like how they use it in the future, it's open to their discretion.
Okay. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so the idea is rooted in that, at the very beginning of the year, the village board has approved a set budget amount. That budget amount, once it goes over to the library, it stays with the library. I think the issue that we run into, although it may not be specifically electricity, there are other areas. For example, I know that this past year, they had an employee who left and they didn't hire a replacement for quite some time. So I'm assuming that some of the savings in their fund amount is there. And so as we come to year end and we have an excess fund balance in the library budget, my understanding is that in looking at their actual expenses, the electricity line and was a line that needed to be adjusted. And so if I'm explaining that correctly. So you'll see the adjustments in electricity, adjustment in wages. It so happens that those lines at the end of the year, the actual spends were different than what was budgeted. And so it's a true up of what their budget is compared to what their fund balance is.
Yes, Rebecca? Oh, Jan was first. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Jan was first.
Okay, back to Carol. So I'm looking at the income statement analysis, and under the revenues, the total miscellaneous revenues, the final budget was like 308,000, and the actual was about 868,000, so about a difference of 560. I'm glad to see it under the revenues, not the expenditures. What is the miscellaneous revenues? And why is that so big? What happened there? Why is that so big?
Yeah, that's a grouping. I want to double check, but investment earnings were much higher than predicted.
Okay.
So that's where a lot of it's coming from.
Okay.
We had revenues above what we expected in rec programs, but then we also have expenses that exceed what we budgeted. So those kind of get used in that way. As I believe Brandy reported, our building permits were record high. So that line item was much higher than expected. But then again, we have building inspection costs that come in to kind of offset that. We had donations from the police K-9 Foundation, but that covered some K-9 related costs in the PD. So a lot of our excess revenue does get applied to expenses that end up being higher than expected. But our interest revenue, we've continued to try to budget conservatively, and it's been really strong. So that's where a lot of that excess just comes from.
Wonderful. That's probably because it's your lead.
Well,
Good job.
with that.
But anyways, and then at the bottom of that, so it says recommended transfer to Fund 400, $1 million. The Fund 400, that's the capital improvement fund, right?
Right.
Okay, so the shortfall that we have for Highway V,
Yep.
so could that come out of that?
That's going to go
That's what we're
directly to
talking
that.
about?
So
Okay.
it'll reduce what we have to borrow.
Okay.
So we'll apply that directly to the project.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Rebecca?
I'm going to piggyback off of what he was asking related to that library stuff. I don't have a problem with them keeping that excess. Do they account for what happens to it, though?
Yes, they do. So we have, they actually send us a report every year of everything they've done within that Fund 220. And we have to record everything in our system and then report that to the auditors, so the auditors review it.
Okay, so if we ever had a question, okay, thank you.
And our library rep is next to you shaking her head. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So, okay. Anything else on this with questions? Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That's always good news, Carol. All right, 10.4, ordinance 2025-013, an ordinance repealing and recreating section 9.02 of the DeForest Municipal Code, regulating the sale of cigarettes, tobacco products, and vaping devices, and amending various sections of the DeForest Municipal Code to provide for payment by licensed applicants of the cost of criminal background checks.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Callie, do you want to offer any remarks?
This is, the background check portion is through a conversation that Chief Olson and I had, that it does cost the village $7 to conduct a background check, and we are required to do those for all agents and people associated with the licensing for liquor and tobacco licenses, also operator licenses. We do a background check for seller's permit applications, and also for firework display permits. So we feel that it is only fair to pass that cost on to the applicant instead of the general taxpayer. And the changes with the cigarette, tobacco, and vaping device is due to the act, what is it here, quick? Act 73 that was passed in 2023 that revamped the tobacco licensing to now include vape products. And this change just is reflected then in our ordinance, what the state statutes say. So.
Okay, are there questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10.5, Resolution 2025-029, a resolution accepting the lowest qualified bid and awarding a contract for reconditioning of River Road Tower Alternate 1.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. These are bids. So are there any questions or comments for Judd or Greg? Nothing to say, guys? Okay. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10.6, Resolution 2025-030, a resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Dane County for cost sharing of the reconstruction of the portion of County B in the village of DeForest.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Does this loss of the grant have any impact on this?
No, no,
Okay.
this is what we have an agreement, and I think Callie sent out revised stuff, right? So it was adjusted, they had a mistake on their end and left out the word construction. So it should be design and construction, which covers engineering and the cost. So that's, update was in both of those because they're handled in two separate transactions, because one's a reconstruction, one's a resurface.
Okay. All right. Yes, Jim.
I have a note and I apologize. I don't remember where it was in the agreement, but my note said that if it talked about reconstruction and if not, no jurisdiction. There's something about jurisdictional transfer in the agreement. I want to verify, we're not doing a jurisdictional transfer.
Jurisdictional transfer is mentioned in their policy as one of the things that they consider. It's not part of the contracts that we have.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're not doing that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10.7, Resolution 2025-031, a resolution authorizing a village president and clerk to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Dane County for cost sharing for the resurfacing of a portion of County Highway V in the village of DeForest. So the last one was the reconstruction, and this is the resurfacing, different animal.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments you guys want to make? Any questions? Yes, Jim.
I just want to note that I think I'll vote for this resolution, but I would, in my judgment, I would have liked to have more curb and gutter out there than is currently proposed, but I think it's a good agreement as far as getting this road fixed that's been badly needed, so.
I didn't understand you.
A lot of the cross section is staying rural rather than adding curb and gutter, and I would have preferred to have more curb and gutter, but I think that added complications if we were going to do that. So I'm for moving ahead with the agreement because we need the road fixed and not worrying so much about the curb and gutter at this point.
Okay.
Curb and gutter would have triggered jurisdictional transfer with the county. They would have wanted us to take that road over. And my point back to them is that is a heavily traveled road, not only by our residents, but by people traveling from Highway 151 to cross over to the west side of the county, right? They're taking Highway V through us, through Dane. So it's more than just a local road.
All right. There's no other questions. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 10.8, Resolution 2025-032, a resolution approving a collateral assignment of development agreement and municipal revenue obligation for the TDC DeForest 4 LLC development. That's a mouthful.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. Do we have,
Second.
and a second. Any comments that you want to make, Bill?
Just quickly, this is for industrial facility construction build over on Cake Parkway. Developers are looking to move forward in the acquisition of the property and closing. And so they've, as part of the financing for that, they've asked for this collateral assignment, which is required consent from the village as part of the developers agreement.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 10.9, Resolution 2025-033, a resolution releasing a development restriction on Lot 4 Certified Survey Map number 16371.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments that you want to make? And then Jim has a question.
Sure. So this is in regards to the same developer, TDC DeForest 4 LLC, and along Cake Parkway. Going through the title work, was discovered that there is a restrictive covenant or restriction restricting residential development on Lot 4 Certified Survey Map 16371. Looking over this, we have zoning control over the property since it's been annexed to the village of DeForest. And so we're okay with removing that restriction. The developer has asked for us to remove it as part of clearing title.
Okay, Jim?
My only question was where this parcel is.
Yeah, so I believe it's the northern half of the parcel that TDC DeForest 4 intends to construct on. Show it on the map, or just give me a minute. So this is the interstate. This is County Highway V coming across east to west. This is Cake Parkway, and I believe this is the old lot.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, excuse me, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications, the check register was in your packet. Committee, commission, and board reports. We would take some updates regarding the DeForest Area Library. Tashidra. Okay. How about Public Safety Commission?
We just had a couple of operators licenses to approve.
Okay. DeForest Area Community and Senior Center?
Always a lot happening there. We have 3 new awnings above the 3 new entrances, and they look fabulous. They were installed last Wednesday. And we have also received our own EIN for the reorganization. So we've made it through another step in that situation. That was good news. And last Friday, we had the Trinity Irish Dancers there, which was a lot of fun. But we also had, since it was Pie Day, our wonderful DeForest Public Works Department there serving pie. And it was excellent. I actually got a piece of peach, sugar-free, and I don't think I've had a sugar-free piece of pie. It was excellent. But anyways, they did a great job and everyone was really happy that they were there doing that.
Thank you, guys.
Made a lot of people happy.
All right, well, that's exciting. All right, the Community Development Authority, Alex.
We approved a revised tenant selection plan for our property at 509 North Main Street, and we executed an option to purchase property at 109 West North Street.
Thank you. All right, Planning and Zoning Commission, Jim?
So this is the February 25th meeting I'm reporting on. We had a Rivers Bend multiple family that we also know as the Fred parcel, that had its final development plan approved and some CSMs. There was a public hearing on the HSA property, which is, if you remember, is out on Hickory Lane. And that property was rezoned and some CSMs also. And then I think the last thing was Yahara Crossing that Alex reported on, and that one got rezoned also. That's it.
You want to go on and do the public services?
Public services, I don't have in front of me, so I'm gonna have to hit Judd up. I know we had 3 things on the agenda. One was the deer, one was parkitecture, and you'll remind me of Highway V, which is the stuff we talked about just now too. And I should elaborate on the parkitecture if you want to, maybe Judd or Reese.
We had the preliminary meeting with Parkitecture and planning the 7 different parks that we're having plans built out for. They'll give us probably 2, maybe 3 plans for each park. So we gave them the original rough estimate, shared that with the Public Services Committee last night. They'll be back for the April meeting at the Public Services Committee with a preliminary idea, right? So they'll have to turn around their ideas and requests back pretty quickly because they have to have it back, the final drafts of those plans. And again, they're drafts, right? So it's a final draft, but does not mean that's what's going to happen in the park, right? It's for discussion purposes and to take out and share with folks in neighborhoods. And then, so that'll be back by May 27th. So it'll come before the board that last meeting in May, both the Public Services and the village board here.
And most
The other thing we
of
talked
those
about was Park and
on-site.
Connect
Yep.
things that we're doing. So they were going out, there's one at the Fireman's Park, that'll be the first, June 6th, June 5th, the first summer series event, piano fondue's there, so it draws a big crowd. We're hoping to get feedback from folks. We're also going to take it to Dale Jenkins Park, July 21st in stereo. If you guys can time that up so I don't have to piece it together, that'd be great. And then the third one we did will be in September. We had a vote on Engage DeForest. September 18th for, the winning vote was Western Green. So we'll be hosting a Park and Connect at Western Green. Again, these are an hour-long type of thing. The one in July will actually be our Public Services Committee meeting on site. So it'll be a chance for our Public Services Committee to be out and see what feedback we get, so.
Thank you. That is my report. Thank you for adding to it, Judd. And we're really excited to get out and get some public input on our parks.
All right, thank you, Jim. And last but not least, we have the DeForest Windsor Fire and EMS District. Ms. Vice President, you want to report on what we did at the?
Well, we already reported on our meeting for this month at the last village board meeting. So we will be meeting again April 2nd.
Okay, all right. We have our fire chief in the back if people have questions. Looking better, yes?
Microphone. Jeez.
What's that? Got it handled. Just with the weather being as it is and the high fire risk, if we don't get weather in on Thursday, we will be banning all burning in the district, including village projects. So just so everybody's aware, they really like it when we do that to them, but unfortunately, everything's on fire and will continue to be.
All right.
It's been a terrible season.
Thank you for that. We need moisture. I don't know how water tables are, you guys, but, okay. All right, thank you. And I hope you're feeling better. Good.
Go home and rest.
All right. Item 12.2, committee, commission, and board minutes were in your packet. Bill, do you want to give your DCCVA report?
Sure. So the DCCVA, the Dane County Cities and Villages Association, did meet last Wednesday at MMSD. This was the alternate between virtual meetings and on-site meetings. And so we had a welcome from Eric Dundee, the new executive director. There was a guest speaker from Safe Communities, which we are participating in. It's a national group that look at health issues within communities and tries to resolve those issues. I believe last week they were in DeForest area, the DeForest area schools talking about suicide prevention and bullying. And then lastly here, the DCCVA will have their annual meeting upcoming here in, I believe, May. So they are looking for, they continue to look for committee members as part of the DCCVA appointments. But that's what the annual meeting is about.
All right, thank you. But just lo and behold, and note your calendars, there is no closed session tonight. So unless there is any other business to lawfully come before the board, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait, oh.
I just ask a quick question for myself. If I don't get elected or somebody else, are we coming to the next meeting?
The-
Be elected then, right?
The new,
Term starts on the
the-
third Tuesday in April.
Third Tuesday.
Like,
So we will be coming Thursday regardless then. Okay, thank you.
So we'll all be here on the 3rd.
Yeah, because nobody would have been sworn in.
Okay, someone make a motion to adjourn?
I will.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 6:57 PM.
So you're sliding over there.